Oh my love.
Welcome to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Zakia, and on this channel I deal with all things home decor and style. And in today's video I'm going to be taking you guys with me thrifting, and I'm going to let you in on what I'm looking for when I'm thrifting for high-end inspired decor pieces. And I'm also going to show you how I transform one of these pieces into a really beautiful high-end inspired piece. Let's get started. One of the things that I do before I go thrifting sometimes is that I will go through inspiration images and sort of just put together a list in my mind, or sometimes I may write it down, or sometimes I have even printed out photos of items that I really want to find something similar to, or something that I can transform. And I don't always do that, but I find that that helps me to really stay on track and helps me to really find the pieces that I'm looking for. And of course, I definitely keep my eyes open for other items, because that is literally the most fun thing about thrifting, is that it's like a treasure hunt. Every time you go, it's a surprise treasure hunt. Right now, I'm decorating my house for spring, and I was incredibly inspired by these extra large vases that I was seeing on Pinterest. So the number one thing that I was looking for while I was thrifting was going to be one of these really, really large vases that I could transform. So I started out in the glassware section, and I always look in this section when I'm thrifting because it's relatively inexpensive. And if you can find something with an interesting shape, you can always paint it and create a ceramic look. I did find this vase, but even though I like the shape, it was a lot smaller than what I wanted. So I just put it back and kept looking. I like to make sure that I hit most of the areas. Like, even if I'm not looking for candles, I'm still going to look in the candle section, because you never know what you're going to find there or what you're going to come across in each of the sections. When I'm thrifting, I like to look for items that are made of high-end materials like marble, like solid brass, like solid wood, because if you do that, you're already off to a great start in finding those items that are going to give your home a really high-end look. And also, just always remember to keep an open mind when you're thrifting. Things do not always have to remain as they are the way that you find them. Just remember that as long as something is solid and it is sturdy, that you can always breathe new life into it with a coat of paint or a lot of different ways that you can customize things. I came across these two little small brass vessels, and I just immediately thought that they were beautiful. They appeared to be pretty old, and they had some damage to them, like around the mouth of each of the vessels there was some damage, but I actually felt like that enhanced the way that they looked. Like, for me, this is the type of piece that really has a one-of-a-kind unique look that really translates to being high-end. And when I show you guys how I style these pieces, and you will really get to see why I say that pieces like this that are extremely unique, that are made of durable materials, really will set your home apart and really give it that beautiful, custom, unique style that a lot of us are really looking for. And you can do it on a budget, which is just the icing on the cake. Another section that I always shop when I'm thrifting is the baskets. And especially this season, we are seeing a lot of rattan, a lot of woven baskets. If you've been to Target recently, you will see that they have a ton of woven decor. They've got woven vases, all sorts of things. And not that they are overly expensive there, but if you can get it cheaper at a thrift store, then why not do that? So definitely check the basket section in your thrift store and pick up some pieces and use them in really creative, beautiful new ways. Do you guys ever have that thing that when you are thrifting and you see it on the shelf and then you try to hurry over there to get it before anybody else notices it? That's how I felt when I saw this jug. I thought it was so pretty, and normally I stick to lighter colors, but lately I've really been enjoying darker, moodier colors as accents in my house. So at this point, I was really happy that I had found the 2 small brass vessels and that I had found the black stoneware jug. But my main objective was still to find a large vessel to remake. I found this small little creamer pitcher. I'm not sure exactly what you would call this, but I thought it was really beautiful. It had a beautiful charcoal color, a very mottled type of texture. It was like a charcoal and black, and I thought it had sort of like a classic sort of look yet again that I thought was really beautiful. So I picked that up. And I also took a look at this beautiful wooden bowls. Wooden bowls are a great item to thrift if you're going for that high-end look that is in right now. You can strip them, you can paint them. There are so many possibilities, but I typically do like to pick up wooden bowls when I'm at the thrift store because they can run anywhere from about $3.99 to $9.99. And if you purchase those wooden bowls new, they are very expensive. So when you are thrifting for high-end pieces, definitely go for those wooden bowls and don't be afraid to strip them or paint them or put them to new uses. Thrift stores are the perfect place to find silver pieces like this beautiful silver pitcher, which was actually a really great deal. And I put it in my basket and then I took it out when I was sorting through everything. And I'm not exactly sure why I did that, but I definitely wish that I had purchased that because something like that will instantly elevate your decor. You can put fresh flowers in it or stems, and you instantly have a high-end look. Another section that I always visit is the lamp section. This, in my opinion, is a treasure trove of goodies. I really love to refinish lamps. It is such an easy, such an impactful way to elevate your decor and get a high-end look. So always visit the lamp section, and I would advise you to look through some inspiration photos before you go to the thrift store if you're going to do this. That way you already have some shapes and ideas in your mind as to what types of lamps to look for. So as you can see right here, I literally found the vessel that I was looking for, and I don't think that you can truly pick up on the actual size of this thing. This vessel was really big and really heavy. It is extremely overpriced. And I am fully aware of that. The thing about thrift stores in my area is that it can be very hit or miss with the pricing, but I wanted this piece so bad that I just went ahead and paid it because I know that it is still cheaper than what I would pay for a piece like this in somewhere like Pottery Barn or Restoration Hardware, but it was extremely overpriced. But it was the exact size and shape that I wanted, so I knew that it would be worth it in the end. And actually, now seeing how it turned out, I don't regret spending the $17.99 for it. It was worth every penny. So to start out, I always begin my projects with thoroughly cleaning the pieces. On a piece like this, I'm going to use alcohol and just wipe down all of the surfaces really thoroughly and then let them dry. If this was a glass piece, I would follow up the alcohol by cleaning with acetone. You really want to make sure that you clean your piece very well, because that's going to give you the base for whatever you're going to add to it. So if you don't clean that piece properly and you paint it or put a finish on it, that finish can flake off or peel off, and you don't want to spend the time and effort to make this look the way that you want it to look, only to have it peel off. So take your time and make sure that you get it very clean and let it dry thoroughly before you start painting. So I'm starting with chalk paint in this sheepskin color, which is basically an ivory color. And normally I might add a little bit of baking soda or some other type of medium in order to add texture to the surface of whatever I'm working on. But this vase already has a little bit of texture. It's not a grainy texture like what baking soda might add, but it had a lot of different little lines and scratch type textures in it. So I really didn't feel like I wanted to add any more texture. The inspiration piece that I was working from loosely, very loosely, was this piece from Pottery Barn, and I really like that the piece reads as white, off-white, and it's relatively smooth, so I knew that I didn't want to add any more texture. If you are looking for ways to add more texture to the surface of a vase or a lamp, you can check out this tutorial that I did. I did a Pottery Barn dupe lamp, and I did add texture to this lamp in order to create the look. So I will put a card up for that in the corner, and you can check that out. When I'm working on pieces like this, the main thing that I'm aiming for is to create depth in my finish. I could very easily just paint this all white and call it a day, but I really wanted to create a sort of layered look that gives this a little bit more soul and a little bit more feeling. It is this depth that is really going to create that high-end look in a piece like this, and it's also going to work with the fact that we are redoing a pre-existing item. Once that first layer of paint is thoroughly dried, then we are going to go in and do a second coat of paint and also let that thoroughly dry. The next step is where we're going to start adding our layers of color, and I'm going in with a tan color. I will put the exact color down in the description box, but it is a tan craft paint, and I'm going in with that paint on a brush, and I'm using a wet paper towel. As soon as I get that paint on there with the brush, I'm lightly wiping it off with the paper towel, and as you can see, that paint is going into the recessed areas of the vase, and that is why texture can be very important, because where you have texture, you will get paint in those areas, and it's going to help to develop those layers. After a while, I just started to go directly with the paper towel and the paint onto the vase, and that also worked just fine. The paper towel was still damp, so it was still allowing me to spread the paint on very easily and to take it off so that it wasn't a thick layer. And as you can see here, I am just working that tan paint into the texture of the vase. And if you need to create texture on your piece, then all you need to do is add baking soda to your first 2 layers of paint. You can just sprinkle some baking soda into your paint and make sure that it is thoroughly mixed up, and paint that on to your vase for those first 2 base layers. And I would even maybe add 1 more layer of paint with baking soda just to ensure that you have enough texture to really create this sort of depth. And make sure that you let your layers dry between each layer. And again, if you want to see that in depth, you can always revisit this video of mine that I have up in the iCards, and it will show you in depth how to create those textured base layers. My inspiration piece was not very textured. That's why I chose not to add any more texture on this piece. And you don't have to add the texture in order to use this particular technique, but you will have to be more intentional about leaving paint in some areas and not in other areas, because you want to create a really organic look. So in some areas you are going to wipe the paint off a little bit more than in other areas in order to get that really natural look without the texture. And you will see me doing that here. In some areas, I'm leaving the paint a little bit thicker than in other areas, and that is just going to serve to add more visual interest to our finished piece. So now that I have my base color set, I can go in and start to work on my finished layers, which are going to be white. And I'm going to use two different techniques with applying the white paint. I want this vase to read overall as white or off-white, but as you can see, because I've added those previous layers, it's not a flat white. This actually has a lot of depth to it. So on this layer, I'm going in with somewhat of a dry brush, which means there's not a lot of paint or a lot of moisture on the brush itself. And I'm just lightly brushing it around on the vase and feathering it out. I don't want any hard edges, so I'm being sure to use my brush to feather all of the edges while the paint is still wet. So you will just see me going over spots a lot with that brush, just feathering it out. Let that layer dry completely, and then we're going to move on to our final paint layer. And this layer is going to be a very thin layer. As you can see here, I've added a small amount of paint, and I'm gradually adding more and more water because I want this to be a wash layer. This layer is going to go over the entire surface of the vase, but I want it to be very sheer so that it's giving a very soft coverage. It's covering everything and creating a really soft overall finish, but we will still be able to see through this layer. And as you can see, I'm using a paper towel here just to take up the excess moisture. This final paint layer is very, very thin and very wet. So I'm not using the paper towel to remove color. I'm just using it to take up the excess moisture so that there are no drips on the surface of the vase. All of our base layers are still visible through this final wash, but the wash is just softening everything up and really giving it this really beautiful, slightly out of focus finish. At this point, we are finished with all of our paint layers, and hopefully you guys can see the texture that we have achieved here. And I hope that you can see that it is a lot more complex and a lot more depth than if we had just painted this a flat white or a flat ivory. And we still aren't done. We are going to make this finish even better with our finish coat. And instead of using a clear spray paint, we are going to actually use this cream wax, and it is going to give us a beautiful, soft satin sheen to our piece. If we didn't add a finish coat, our piece would be left matte because I used chalk paint. Let the cream wax set and dry overnight, and the next day you're going to use a lint-free cloth. I'm using a paper towel here, but you really should use a lint-free cloth, and you are going to go through and you're going to rub small circles and buff the surface of your vase, and that is going to bring out the sheen. And as you can see here, you can see where the light is reflecting off of the vase, and you can see that sheen coming out more and more, and it is really just a soft, beautiful sheen. And if any of you happen to have the Orion bowl from Pottery Barn, this finish reminds me somewhat of the Orion bowl. It is that beautiful sort of off-white, although this is a little bit more white than the Orion bowl, but the sheen of it and the way the surface reflects light in a really soft way is very similar to the effect that you're going to get if you follow this tutorial. So this is what our final finish turned out like, and I am so absolutely happy with the way that this vase turned out. If you want to see how I styled this vase and the other pieces that I thrifted in this video, then definitely subscribe so that you will be alerted whenever I post my next video. I am going to be styling these pieces either in my next video or the video after that. It's going to be in my spring decorating video, and I'm going to show you how I styled all this stuff, and I'm so excited. So thank you for being here today. Please consider becoming a part of our community. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time.